Hey everybody, it's Never, and today I want to talk about getting better at World of Warcraft, and really at anything, but specifically geared toward World of Warcraft because that's what I talk about the most on this channel. So you might run across this if you've decided to start doing something that's a little more challenging than what you normally do, or if you find you're getting kind of stuck in a rut and you need to bring it a little harder, as they say. This applies probably most to raiding the way that I think about it, but it also would apply to anything like PvP or simply just getting stuff done in the game. And there's a few steps I'm going to go through that outline my approach to this and what has worked for me in the past and in anything that I really do. The first thing is to understand a concept called the novice's fallacy. I've mentioned this before, but I'll go over it again quickly. The novice's fallacy is thinking that you know more about something than you do because of how little you know about it. Or another way to say it is that you don't know how much you don't know. Oh, a good illustration is, imagine that there's a circle, and inside the circle represents everything you know about something. Now, if it's a little circle, you don't know very much. And the outside edge of the circle represents how much you know that there is to know about something. So when you know very little, you think there's not all that much left to learn. But when you know a lot, the circumference is quite a bit bigger and you realize there is so much more to learn than you know. So the first trick to getting better at something is to make that circle grow a little bit, or at least be very aware of the outer edge of the circle. And the fallacy, the novice's fallacy, is where you don't do that, and because you know a little bit, you think you know a lot. And by the time you become pretty good at something, you realize how much there is to learn. This is extremely evident in learning a musical instrument, as I've experienced a few times. So how does it apply to World of Warcraft? Let's take a look at it from a raiding perspective with the simple idea of executing mechanics. So we have things like moving out of the fire, or clicking the thing when it's time, or being the guy who does the interrupts. Any of these things require a certain proficiency in something, but there are varying degrees of success and ability with it. Let's talk about interrupts for an example. The very beginner guy misses the interrupt a lot of the time, but he gets it now and then, and that's pretty sucky. But for small time raiding, it's okay as long as you get it most of the time. A healer can usually get through it. So then we go to kind of he decides I've got to get better at doing interrupts. So what does he do? Well, he realizes how interrupts work. You have to do it while the boss is casting whatever. And so to play it safe, as soon as you see the interrupt happening, as soon as you see it, you push that interrupt, you push that kick ability, and I guess as soon as you see the spell happening, you push the interrupt, and then boss gets interrupted. Great. Well, and that's beginner level of actually being able to do it. You just do it as soon as you can, and it gets the job done. But let's go up another level and be a little more intermediate. You know that the boss has a 3-second cast, or even a 1-second cast for this thing. So let's go, and I'm going to wait till the bar is at 50% of the 3-second cast. And the reason I'm going to do that is, for most things, when the boss is trying to cast a spell, he's not putting out other damage. And so that's a whole 1.5 seconds. That's a global cooldown where no damage is going out. And I want to make that count. So if I can wait until 50% of the way through the bar, then I still have enough time to actually get the interrupt off, but I also give my healers a break and I give my tank a little bit of wiggle room. And so an intermediate way would be to do it that way, to hit it at 50%. And then you could get a little more advanced with it, and this requires some specific exposure with that encounter. But once you get really good and you know that it's exactly 3 seconds and you know about when it's coming in the sequence of the fight, you could wait until just the very last second, and as long as you're not late, you could give your tank or your healer almost 3 seconds of downtime where the boss is busy casting something, and then you get it at the very last second. This is very easy to do on longer casts, like 5 to 10 seconds long stuff. Iskar comes to mind, but it's trickier to do on shorter casts. But you can see the varying degrees of proficiency that this gives you. And so the way that we arrive at this is just by looking at what's around us, by realizing that all that matters is that we interrupt the cast before it finishes, and so that puts us in a way that we can start to think about it a little better, and then we realize that we can apply this concept to other things. So we know that if we wait till as long as possible, the boss spends more time doing something that is beneficial to us, not attacking. So what other things can we do? Well, when we have a tank swap, if the boss has to run across the room, that's time the boss is spending not doing something else. And so if you put the tanks at opposite ends of the room and they tank swap by taunting, and it's okay for the boss to move for the other mechanics, that can buy you some really nice time for healers to fill everyone up, or for damage to simply not go out while damage is still going to the boss. Now sometimes it's annoying for a melee group to have to chase the boss, but the fact is, if the melee group is pretty good, most melee classes don't have to stand still to DPS. And the range don't care as long as they're within range. So you can think about it this way by, it comes down to what's the aptitude level of the players in your group. Can they handle an intermediate level of play or an advanced level of play? So the first thing is to simply look around you and see what can you do to make the experience easier for everyone. And that's a way that you can play your class better, get better at World of Warcraft. And this applies to everything in the game. It simply takes sitting down and looking at it and thinking it through. So that's one thing. The next thing goes in a very different direction, and this is something that I pull out now and then to use to get myself better during raiding season if I'm running into something where I'm just not as quick as I should be. If I'm trying to hit that 80% mark through the cast to interrupt and I'm missing it now and then I realize I need to be a little sharper, a little more on top of things. And what I like to do in that situation is stop playing World of Warcraft for a while, or at least take some time to play something else. Generally, I want to play something that's a little more demanding on my reflexes. My go-to for that is Heroes of the Storm. I am not good at Heroes of the Storm. I'm really not. I'm one of those AI heroes that likes to play against the AI because I enjoy playing the mechanics of the game, but I just don't feel like getting competitive with it. I'll play a quick match with my friends now and then, but I've never done anything really serious. However, Heroes of the Storm has much shorter durations on everything. All the stuns are, half a second or 1, maybe 2 seconds on the longer end. And all the cooldowns are really short. It's a very fast-paced game compared to World of Warcraft's combat, which is a little more relaxed, especially in a raiding situation. There's exceptions to that where you get to like a subtlety rogue or a feral druid or an enhancement shaman or a few other notable ones where your global cooldown locked if you spec the right way and you're busy pushing buttons like crazy. So it can get very intense and very involved, but the flow of the fight is generally kind of relaxed compared to other games. Any first-person shooter is generally quite a bit more fast-paced than World of Warcraft is. Even something like Skyrim, especially if you play melee or you want to get really clever and you turn off the auto-aiming feature and you try and play a stealth archer that way or a not stealth archer, it can get quite a bit more intense. And the reason I like to do this is because it sharpens my reflexes, and once I become accustomed to playing that way and I go back to something that's a little more relaxed like World of Warcraft, the downside of it is World of Warcraft can start to feel kind of slow by comparison, but the good thing is that can be very beneficial if I'm in a raiding situation where we are trying to progress against something that's challenging, because my brain is accustomed to working a little faster than the fight is dictating. And so that keeps me sharp and it keeps me a bit ahead of the curve, and I find that sometimes I'm jumping the gun on stuff because I'm thinking that much quicker, and that can give me the extra edge I need to succeed where I would otherwise struggle. So playing something different that forces you to adapt upward in your speed or in your attention to detail is the second big thing that I like to do. And finally, the third thing, and this is something that I don't really do at a specific time or like the other two, because you should be evaluating what you're doing and how you can improve it all the time, but most of the time looking for a better way to use your interrupts or something like the first thing I talked about. It's good when you're learning a fight, but once you have your strategy down, the second part comes into play. How well can you execute that strategy? The third thing is universal. It applies to everything, and that is simply just take care of yourself. If you're not exercising, start exercising. If you don't care about what you eat, start thinking about what you eat. Eat things that will promote a sharp mind and better rest and a more responsive physique. All of those things can contribute famously to your effectiveness in any game, especially World of Warcraft, because you don't get tired as quickly and your mind is more alert. and your reflexes are sharper. All of these things are very well documented and very provable. So no matter what your fitness level is, if you decide to take the time to take care of yourself just a little better than you are, you'll see benefits in everything that you do. And it makes your ability to problem solve for the first strategy I talked about that much quicker. It makes your reflexes in the second strategy that much sharper. So take good care of yourself. There's plenty of good ways and methods and programs out there to do all of that stuff. I like to say that the best exercise program is the one that you'll stick with. So if you're not sure what to do, try some stuff out, find the thing that feels good to you and that you can maintain and consistently keep with, and then keep with it. The same thing for nutrition, the same thing for exercise, whatever it is. So I would encourage you, no matter what your situation is, whether you want to improve or not, take good care of yourself. You only get one body, so you might as well make the best of it. And then work on your reflexes, work on how sharp you are at the game by playing games that challenge you and force you to rise a little bit above the skill level you tend to put into World of Warcraft. And then use your ability to think things through and to problem solve to better understand the mechanics of the fight that you're doing, or whatever it is, to prepare for any situation you run into in PvP, or simply to be more efficient at your day-to-day outside content that you do. And just make the time you spend playing the game more effective so that you can have more fun. So that's all it is. This is something that's been on my mind a little bit lately, and I thought I would share the way that I approach this. We've got a new expansion coming up, and new stuff is a lot of fun. It's a whole lot more fun if you're alert for it, if you're awake for it, if your skills are sharp for it, and you can think your way through new stuff that no one's ever seen, or that very few people have seen, and there's not a lot of ideas on how to handle. I hope that this was helpful to you. If you like this type of video, then please leave a comment. If you don't, then leave a comment about that too. Okay, thanks, bye.